Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast with Phil Graham. We help you master Facebook ads and give you an unfair advantage over your competition. Are you ready? Let's go.
What's up, podcast family? Welcome to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast, episode 428. I'm Phil Graham. This is July 22nd, 2025. I'm so glad you're here because today I'm going to be talking about why I ignore many of Meta's best practices when it comes to ads, and I'm going to share what I do instead. So with Facebook and Instagram ads, there's lots of so-called best practices out there that people believe, but the crazy thing is many of these things might actually be killing your ad performance. They might actually be costing you potentially a lot of time and or money. So if you're following all the so-called rules and best practices that everybody says to do, even Meta on some of this stuff, if you're following all that and you're still getting bad results, you are not alone. In this quick episode, I'm going to share 3 of these so-called best practices that many times I ignore, and I'll share what I'm doing instead. So if you've been struggling with your ads, or maybe you feel stuck, or you maybe just want to get to the next level, this might just be a game-changing episode for you. And I want to be really clear about this. I love Meta. I love Facebook and Instagram ads, and I don't think they're trying to deceive you with some of these so-called best practices. But there are so many advertisers in so many different situations. There's no way that one thing can work great the same way for every advertiser. And so what might work for one might be horrible for you. So I'm not saying they're out there putting bad info, but what I am saying, whether it's them or some fake guru or somebody else, a lot of what people are putting out there sometimes can be costing you a lot of time or money. And so you got to be very, very careful when it comes to that stuff. So this should be a great episode, and I'm going to try and keep it as short, sweet, full of value, and actionable for you guys as possible. But before we jump in, I did want to mention, you guys, I can't believe this is already July 22nd, like midsummer. We are not that far off from fall. And as an advertiser, you probably know you should be planting your seeds now for a harvest when the holidays start happening. So make sure you guys are focused on that. This is a very important time of year. And by the way, when it comes to that kind of stuff, if you're looking for some help with your ads, I believe one-on-one coaching is the best way in the world to learn because it is specific to you personally, to your business, to your exact situation. It's not a bunch of group think or the blind leading the blind. And that's why I love it so much. So whether you're looking for some coaching one-on-one, or maybe you don't want any of that, you'd rather just have somebody run your ads for you so you can focus on other stuff. For either one of those things, just go to my website, philgrahamdigital.com, or DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital, and we can set up a short Zoom call, and I would love to connect with you. So let's jump right in, my friends. When it comes to Meta and Facebook and Instagram ads, there's a lot of so-called best practices that might look good or sound good on paper, but when they're in real campaigns with real budgets, real money, especially when it's yours, sometimes they might be doing more harm than good and actually costing you money. So we're going to talk about 3 specific tactics that many times I ignore and what I do instead. But I want to be very clear about this. Obviously, when it comes to ads, when it comes to marketing, there's no get rich quick. There's no guarantees. You've got to test this stuff and use data to make smart decisions. And that's how I've learned and become highly skilled, is from doing that for many years. So make sure you're really paying attention to the data. So let's jump right in and talk about so-called best practice number 1. I see this talked about probably more than anything else, and that is the best practice of just broad targeting with Advantage Plus and pretty much doing nothing else. You just use Advantage Plus, you give it tons of creatives to work with, and just let it do its thing. Let the machine learning go, It's easy to manage, and you're literally putting your life and your business into the algorithm's hands and just hoping for the best. Well, the sad thing is, my friends, I've seen so many advertisers and campaigns like this that have failed. And here's the problem. Now, let me start off by saying I like Advantage Plus. I'm not saying not to use it. In fact, I use it a ton, but many times I'm not only using Advantage Plus and not other things because many times other things outperform it by a huge margin. So I'm not saying I don't like Advantage Plus. What I'm saying is for many advertisers, that by itself, right now, this exact time that we're in is probably a huge mistake and it could be costing you a lot of time or money or both. The reason why I don't just do Advantage Plus by itself is that you don't have much control. And I've seen Meta spend budget so fast, and a lot of times it's going in the wrong direction with high costs, and it's not doing you any good. There's no way that you can have the same strategy as like a company like Coca-Cola that spends tens of millions of dollars, if not more, on advertising. You just can't. I would actually argue that Coke shouldn't be doing this either, but you have to really look at this stuff as, how it's going to work for your business. These can be very expensive lessons. So, what do I do instead? Well, first of all, I still do Advantage Plus targeting, of course, and broad targeting, but I don't do it by itself. So, usually what I'll do, and it does depend on the exact kind of client, but typically what I'll do is I'll have at least one Advantage Plus / broad targeting audience that we're testing. However, in addition to that, I have a whole nother test, a whole nother audience that is more of a segmented audience. It still could be really large. It depends on what we're testing, but it's going to be based off of different things, maybe interest or behaviors or lookalikes or demographics or a combination of things. But I will tell you this, I could show you tons of data where these segmented audiences have outperformed the large Advantage Plus audiences, sometimes by insane amounts. And that is a game changer in a lot of cases. So here's the thing. One thing doesn't always work. Like Advantage Plus doesn't always work. Segmented audiences don't always work. You can't say that one is the best and you shouldn't do the other. What you should be doing instead of just doing one and that's it is you should be testing both. And then obviously with both, you're going to be testing different creatives and ad angles and stuff like that. But I would be using Advantage Plus very carefully because you can burn through money so fast. Make sure you're also testing segmented audiences. And for some of you guys, they may greatly outperform the Advantage Plus. But again, look at your data. Every situation is unique and different. But I will say, sometimes segmented audiences absolutely crush it. Best practice number 2 is Meta's campaign budgets. Oh my goodness. I have seen this just as much as I've seen the first one as well, where Meta just says, hey, set the budget at the campaign level, put a bunch of stuff in there, put plenty of, put tons of ad sets in there, tons of ads, and we'll just manage it and spread it across however we see fit. Just trust the machine. Here's the problem. I could show you so much data. I mean, reams of data where I will look at ad accounts in all kinds of different industries. And I'll see, for example, Meta spending 80% of the budget on an ad that costs 5 times more per customer to get than some of their other ads. It's insane. You would never do that. Sometimes they're allocating way more budget to low performing ads just based off of the impressions or other things. And you're losing control of your testing. So for example, let's say you've got $100 a day budget and you've got 10 different ads in there. And let's say one of the 10 ads is spending $80 a day just because Meta thinks that's best. Many times they're wrong, by the way, but let's say they think it's best. So you got one spending $80 a day and the other 9 are sharing $20 a day. Well, first of all, one of those 9 might actually be your best ad and have the lowest cost per result, but it's still not getting hardly any budget. Second of all, you're never going to know if any of those are good because those 9 are going to get so little budget compared to the $80 a day that one is getting. You've just got a cluster, you know what. You're never going to know what's good. It'll take forever and probably never. And that is a good way to lose when it comes to your ads. So what do I do instead? Typically, when I'm running ads, and there are situations where I might let Meta run with it for a little bit, but many times, most really, I'm controlling the budget personally. I'm the one saying, I want this budget for this ad set, for this ad, etc. And you can do that various ways. You could still do a campaign budget. And if you've got multiple ad sets, each ad set could have a minimum budget or maximum, so you can do that, or you can set budgets at the ad set level. And then typically, I'm going to give each ad its own budget because if we're going to run 10 ads, we need to compare them head to head. It doesn't do us any good if one ad has 10,000 impressions and one ad has 25. You can't compare those two. Why run 10 ads if it's going to be like that? But if they got a similar budget, then they're all going to have similar impressions. You can compare and contrast so much better and make decisions based off of data. So I don't let Meta just automatically crown a winner based off of garbage early data that happens quite often. I control it myself, and I believe that's part of our secret sauce. And then we've got best practice number 3. Ah, yes, the set it and forget it best practice. So a lot of people say, just don't touch your campaigns, let it run, let the algorithm learn, let it run forever. Just ignore it. Now, this is not as common, although I still see a lot of people talking about this and doing it. I would actually argue that more people turn their stuff off way too soon than this one. But I haven't really talked about this one that much, so I figured this would be a good one to be in here for number 3. So here's the thing. You should let it run long enough for you to have an idea of whether it's working or not. And so for me, it varies what that is based off of budget and audience size and stuff like that. But if I had to just give you a general number, I might say 500 clicks or more to the website or landing page, maybe 1,000. Beyond that, it may be letting it run too long if the performance is horrible. There are reasons why I might let it run longer. I'd have to be inside the ad account to specifically show you what that is. But a lot of times, you don't want to just ignore it. Again, you're not Coca-Cola. You don't have unlimited budget. You got to be smart about this stuff. So don't turn it off too soon, but don't let it run too long. You need to really look at your data. So here's what I do instead. Number 1, I set a minimum that I'm going to let it run. Now, this is where that skill and experience comes in because the minimum I set is based off of tons of factors. I wouldn't be able to tell you what it is unless I was working with you personally. But this is something you can either learn from me in the future or you can learn by doing and become good at it yourself. But I set a minimum. So I know, barring some insane thing, when I run an ad, I'm going to let it run for X number of days or clicks or whatever the case may be. And then once we hit that minimum, what I'm doing is I'm looking at some different things, not just return on ad spend, not just cost per lead or cost per new customer. I'm looking at click-through rates. I'm looking at comments. I'm looking at cost per click, CPMs, and things like that. So these are things that I'll be doing to determine whether I should let it keep running or not, or should I make changes. But I'm not just going to let it keep running forever and do nothing unless, again, there are exceptions. There are reasons why I might do that in certain situations. But for a lot of you guys, that's probably going to be a mistake. But again, let me be clear. Don't just run it for a day or two and turn it off either, because that's like the opposite. And that's bad too. You got to hit that sweet spot in the middle. But don't just set it and forget it and never touch it. You got to know what you're doing. Don't just trust the algorithm because it's probably not going to do good for you in most cases. So, to kind of summarize it, following rules and so called best practices can be okay. It depends who's saying what a best practice is, for one thing. But beyond following them, just blindly trusting them, especially with your money, that is dangerous. So, I encourage you guys to really focus and run ads in a smart way and use your data. Test and use data to make decisions. And don't just fall into this trap of thinking these so-called best practices are the best for you, because there's a good chance they might not be. And I kind of want to close by saying that I'm not saying that these best practices are not best practices. I'm just saying that they may not be for every advertiser. And there's a lot of advertisers that do them and might be failing. And that's why you should be looking at other ways of doing things, because I know that in some situations, in a lot of situations, some of these other ways can have a different effect. I hope that was helpful, you guys. One thing I want to end with is just in terms of like this advice. Remember, there's no guarantees when it comes to marketing or social media or ads. You've got to be really smart and test things for your exact business and let that data decide. Run away from any of these idiot fake gurus that have guarantees that promise riches. It's all a bunch of BS. So be very careful. My friends, episode 428 is in the books. Thank you guys so much for being here. I've actually got a great episode planned for next week. I'm going to share what I call like my 3-minute Facebook ad health check. So make sure you guys check that out next week. But until then, have a great week. If you want to get in touch, philgrahamdigital.com is the website, or DM me on Instagram at philgrahamdigital, and I'll talk to you on next week's episode. Peace out.
Thanks for listening to the Next Level Facebook Ads Podcast. Please remember to subscribe and share this with all your friends. For show notes, more tips, and to learn more about Phil, please visit philgrahamdigital.com/podcast.